This is Nicodemus here. On this episode, I want to be answering a question from one of our subscribers. They asked, do you have any experience with inability to recognize worth, refusal to express oneself? I don't see how to heal that other than by disregarding it for as long as possible and pushing on by taking the course seriously as a path. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a cool question, and let's break it down. And can you hand it to me so I can read it? I'd like to go over as so. Do you have any experience with inability to recognize worth, refusal to express oneself? Do I personally have any experience with that? I don't know any human being that doesn't. So if you think about it, right, we all do at some point. I mean, what human being that is born into this world at some point does not question their own worth? uh, or their inability to recognize their worth and refusal to express oneself, that's almost built into the operating system that is human being. So actually, without what the course is teaching and without really, if let's keep it really simple, without God, there's no way we can actually recognize our worth because our worth is in God. So anytime we listen to the ego's entire doctrine is you're alone, you're separate, you're abandoned, you're a body, you're gonna die. There's a force out there pitted against you, and that it's up to you to construct appropriate defense against that force to protect yourself and to protect your little self. How can for anyone that not be inability for self-worth? If you could pull that up again too, so I could read the second part. For anyone, how can that we there's no way we can know our own self-worth in that environment. So he says, or who he, she, whoever this is I don't see how to heal that other than by disregarding it for as long as possible and pushing on by taking the course seriously as a path. So when you say disregard it, what Jesus says in the course is he says that disregarding is a denial of it, which is the correct use of denial. You know, Freud had this idea of denial that, Helen was obviously familiar with. When Jesus, when she started channeling, Jesus was bringing a deeper use of that distinction of denial. That actually we want to deny illusions. We want to deny anything that convinces us of our lack of worth and our ability, that we can't express ourselves, that we're small, lonely, afraid. So think about this for a moment. I'm going to read here from chapter 30. And you actually, in the question, in that denial, and then taking the course directly as a path, or really what I heard in that is go all in on it. Well, that is actually the only way. So really, your answer is in the question because through continually turning away from illusions, denying their reality, and then going full all in the course, which is really not just this course, it's the path of forgiveness, which is giving forth all my illusions about myself or the world, forgiving them forth, which Jesus says in the course, it's the only path in the end. So think about this just for a moment, is that the moment we could do that, continually do that over and over again, we strengthen that resolve, that fortitude, if you will. That we stop getting sold on appearances because everything about you that you think is not worthy, or I can't express this part of myself, that this is the ugly part of myself. And if I could just push it off or under the rug so the world and others don't see it, and that maybe I won't even see it, I'll just push it down. All of that is illusions. All of it's illusions. And actually, what Jesus says in the course is that really what we're afraid of is if we looked within ourselves, we would find something so ugly and so about what we are that we keep trying to make the world and out there look a certain way and be a certain way to really offset this picture that we have deep down of ourselves. That if people really saw and the world really saw who we are at our core, that we would be so rejected really, though, we rejected ourselves at our very fundamental, really at what the Course he calls it, the special hate relationship that we have deep within ourselves. Think about this just for a moment because all what your question stems from that. We all have that part in us. It's not really real, though. That's the thing. It's illusions, but illusions feel real and they seem real. All, he says this in chapter 31. I'm actually going to read from this, and I think it's throughout this whole chapter. He talks about a madman or a madwoman, somebody who's insane, believes the illusions. That's the very nature of somebody who is insane, is they hallucinate illusions and then they believe the illusions are real. If you walk on, we've all seen this. You walk down the street, maybe somebody's talking to themselves, or they're acting as though what they're conjuring in their mind is real. Like they might be talking to someone who's not there. They believe that that is actually what is, and that's the very hallmark of illusions and madness is that we make up illusions and then we treat the illusions that we make up as real. So think about this just for a moment. I'm going to go here to chapter 30. And it said in chapter 30, section 4, the truth behind illusions. We'll do another video on this section because it's an amazing one. But I love this paragraph 5. So this is chapter 30, section 4, the truth behind illusions, paragraph 5. It starts with this sentence, and I think it's an important sentence. Appearances deceive because they are appearances and not reality. So Jesus says appearances deceive because, and because is italicized. Appearances deceive because they are appearances and not reality. And he says, dwell not on them in any form. Don't dwell on them in any form, which is actually what the questioner, whoever asked that question, was saying, is to really deny those illusions. Don't dwell on them in any form. He goes on, they but obscure reality and they bring fear because they hide the truth. Now, paragraph 6, next paragraph down. This is the answer to the question. Because we first have to acknowledge that we made up all these illusions about ourselves that aren't true. That itself is very difficult for us as humans. Because if we are give up the illusions about ourselves, we're afraid that we give up the world we made and everything the way we see it, which we do. We give up the way that we made it and the way we see it, and we adopt the way the Holy Spirit, really God created it, and the way the Holy Spirit teaches us to see it. So it goes on, it says, appearances can but deceive the mind that wants to be deceived. So we can only be deceived by the appearances if we want to be deceived. So in your question, if we can't see the worthiness of ourselves, it's because we don't choose to. Now, most people be like, I really want to see it. Or this is where Jesus gets really down to the nitty-gritty with us. He says, deep down, we really want to be right about what we made, and we want to be right against God. And it's even though we might cry out like, I want my worthiness, we don't want it enough to choose it over the illusions, which is why we keep staying in sadness and depression, and while we keep getting deceived by these illusions, because somewhere Jesus says deep down, this is what we want. We're not conscious of it. It's not like we walk around saying that's what we want. We just it's so deep in us. Our draw to be right is so deep that we actually keep getting deceived by these appearances over and over again. So he continues on. He says, appearances can but deceive the mind that wants to be deceived. And you can make a simple choice that will forever place you far beyond deception. You need not concern yourself with how this will be done, for this you cannot understand. So Jesus is saying, don't even worry about how this is going to be done. We can't even understand it. He says, but you will understand that mighty changes have been quickly brought about when you decide one very simple thing. You do not want whatever you believe an idol gives. See, it's very simple. What Jesus would say is, if you don't experience the joy of God, you made an idol. Period. So even in the question, when you're asking the question for all of us, all of the I'm not worthy, all of the I'm afraid to express what I feel or my thoughts or all of that are all idols that we place on the altar. And if there's no way in doing that that we could ever feel worth or ever feel God and experience the worth that comes from understanding that you were created perfect as a uh, as an extension of the creator. Now, does that mean you have things to work on in your life? And when you look around that, no, there's all kinds of things to this is a journey of technically work. Your soul, as a spirit is pure, free, eternal. He says, let me read that. But you understand that mighty changes have been quickly brought about when you decide one very simple thing. You do not want whatever you believe an idol gives. For thus the Son of God declares that he is free of idols, and thus is he free. So it's only idols. So really simple, a practice. And what you said that in that question at the end is really great, is that going all in on this practice. It's why I suggest to my students all the time, Course of Miracles lessons every day, through every hour, throughout the day, constantly reminding yourself, because here's the thing, if you don't feel the joy of God, if you don't feel a whole, complete peace, joy, you made an idol. And the idea is that if I could get this to be true, that will be like everything to me. And then suffering is inevitable. So in your life, as you go through your day, look for all the places you made idols that you want those appearances to be true. And then you sacrifice your peace, your wholeness, your joy so that the idol itself can become true, which is why Jesus says appearances can but deceive the mind that wants to be deceived. So that's where we get to have a really honest look at ourselves and say, where do I want to be deceived? Where have I been deceiving myself and chasing after images of myself, how I want the world to see me, the need to look a certain way to the world, the need to try to control the world and get power in the world and manipulate the world and get it all the dream of my life to be the way I want it to be so I could finally feel whole and complete. And it never works because they're all appearances. And the beauty of it and the solution is that appearances cannot touch you because they're illusory by nature. The only thing that you and I can learn to do is to turn away from them and turn to God. And that's always the answer.